Good morning, everyone. My name is Wendy Lisco, and I'm a program manager here at the Dot Foundation. And it is my pleasure to welcome you to our Kickstarter webinar. As you know, Kickstarter is the world's largest funding platform for creative projects. In fact, in just 3 years, over 1.5 million people have pledged over $175 million to 20,000 successful projects. That's a lot of fundraising power for individuals and nonprofits. We know that finding those extra dollars to move forward a unique project can be a challenge, especially when you must also focus on making sure that you cover general operating expenses. So organizations and entrepreneurs have been learning to use every tool in their tool chest, and that includes technology. Today you will learn the anatomy of a successful Kickstarter project. You will learn how to launch a campaign, what kinds of rewards to offer your potential donors, and other tips to help you achieve your Kickstarter fundraising goals. But before we get started, we have a few housekeeping items. First, we have put everyone on mute, and that will help us minimize distracting background noise. So if you have a question, you will want to use the chat box in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. We have a lot to cover today, so we will hold questions until the end of the presentation, but I urge you again to send me your questions throughout the presentation using the chat box. And we promise we will get to as many questions as possible. Please note that we will be showing 2 videos during the presentation. The audio for the videos will be heard through your computer, so be sure to have your computer speakers attached and turned on. And at this time, I'm going to introduce our featured presenter, and that is Stephanie Pereira. And Stephanie, you want to make sure you have *7 to unmute your phone at this moment. Stephanie is the Director of Arts Programs at Kickstarter, and she has spent the last 10 years working with artists and arts organizations to catalyze creative communities through both on- and offline engagement. Stephanie previously served as Associate Director of Learning and Engagement at iBeam Art and Technology Center, a nonprofit residency center in New York City. She holds an MA in Arts Administration from the School of Art Institute of Chicago and a BFA in Visual Arts from our very own Rutgers University. So welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you, Wendy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So I'm back online. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. Let's see. Am I now in control of the slides?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Let's see. Did it take a minute? Because it's not advancing for me. I clicked forward, but it's not advancing.
Click Next.
Next. Okay. Do you guys, what do you see on your screen?
Right now I see, I just put you back on your screen. We help people find creative projects. The first slide.
Okay. I'll just trust that that's what's on the screen. Okay, so Kickstarter is a funding platform for creative projects. Yes, nonprofits can use Kickstarter. The key is that it should be a creative project, so not for general operating costs, and not just to generally support your cause or charity if you are someone who has a charity at the core of your mission. That is the criteria for acceptance when someone proposes a project on Kickstarter. That is what we're looking for, that it is a creative project and that it is not a cause or a charity or something that we call a Fund My Life project. A Fund My Life project is something like, as I said, general operating or paying for rent or overhead costs. So another required thing about Kickstarter is that the funding is all or nothing. So if you guys, I hope you're seeing the Waiting for Godot, the Godot cycle on your screen. Something seems to be wrong with my controls.
No, they're not. So I think I'm going to control them. So just tell me next slide, okay?
Okay, so now Godot cycle is up there?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So the funding for Kickstarter is all or nothing. So when you create a Kickstarter project, you set a goal and a period of time to reach your goal within, usually about 30 days or so. So in this example, which is to put on a 24-hour cycle of Waiting for Godot, they have $575 left to raise with just 10 hours to go. If they did not raise that $575, no one who pledged money to this project would be charged. It'd be like nothing ever happened, everyone just walks away. This is really key. This is the all or nothing funding model. Of course, in this example, and always when projects get to this close to their goal, they do succeed. I just clicked. I think it worked. It
did.
Okay, great. So as Wendy said, we've been around for about 3 years now. We've seen some really, really exciting successes. We just announced last week 20,000 successful projects, $175 million pledged, and it's over 1.5 million people have pledged that money. At this point, we see about $3 million come through the site each week. A little less than half of all projects succeed, so we've actually seen something like 50,000 projects launch. And of those 1.5 million backers, we have what we call 325,000 what we call repeat backers. So these are people that have pledged money to more than one project. So we have people who are really becoming part of a creative community, not only sharing projects that they want to make, but also people who are supporting projects more than one time. Really important thing to know is that Kickstarter does charge a fee for this service, only for successful projects, so only projects that hit their goal. Our fee is 5%. And then Amazon, they function like our banker. They take between a 3 and 5% cut. So something exciting that we have seen is that once a project gets to just 30% of its funding goal, it will succeed over 90% of the time. So this is really exciting. What it says to us is that once a project has a core audience, once the person behind it believes in it, once the backers believe in it, it most likely will happen. So there's a lot of power here with this all or nothing model, as well as this crowdfunding model where you're getting a lot of people behind you. Yes, and no fees are charged unless a project reaches its goal. So no one is charged. It's like nothing ever happened. It's totally free to use if you don't make it. Thank you for that point of clarification. So that's some facts and some figures, but really what we think the most important thing to know is that Kickstarter is a powerful storytelling platform. Every successful project on Kickstarter is about a person or an organization, if that's your case, telling a story, saying this is what we want to accomplish, this is our passion, this is our vision, and then saying to an audience, this is how you can get involved. So the first way that you get to tell your story on Kickstarter, and I hope you guys have at least looked at a Kickstarter project page, and if you haven't, I hope you will when we get off this webinar, so the project video. It's the thing that greets you when you first land on a Kickstarter project page. Hey, can I actually ask that we don't ask questions while I'm presenting? Because it's
no, those questions are for me. I will ask them later. Don't worry.
Okay, cool.
I'm worry about that.
Okay, cool.
And behind the scenes.
Okay, got it. All right, so the project video is the thing that greets you when you first land on a Kickstarter project page. It is usually told in the first-person perspective. So whether it is an individual sharing the project, a group of people sharing the project, or an organization, no matter what, you want to put a human face on that. You want someone representing the project saying, hello, this is us, this is who we are, this is what we care about, this is the thing we want to see happen, this is why it matters. And again, this is how you can get involved. This is really important. So for our 2-year anniversary last year, we put together a montage of some of our favorite Kickstarter videos. We put them together in such a way that it follows the story arc of a typical Kickstarter video, and so we hope it's a bit instructive as well as fun. So I'm going to press the play button to start this video. Just a reminder, the sound for the video is going to be coming from your computer, so either your computer speakers or headphones if you're using them, not from the phone.
Hello. Hi. Hi there.
Hello, Kickstarters.
Hey! Hello!
I thought we were going to do hello.
Hi.
I love your new shoes. Are those new shoes?
Hi, my name is Raquel, and I'm totally naked.
And I could go on, but this is a Kickstarter campaign video, and I haven't even told you what my project is yet.
I would like to help my dad publish a children's story.
We get together and we do a podcast.
Ride House Musical. Stop motion animations.
Let people actually be able to buy a couture dress that they themselves design.
This time I decided to write things that were more lyrical.
I made a film called Codependent Lesbian Space Alien Seek Same.
Right now, I'm sitting on over 200 hours of incredible footage.
I'd like your help to complete it.
Kickstarter does not work without you.
We need you to be a part of this. This is a collaborative experience.
Your support, of course, will not go unrewarded.
We've got CDs, posters, t-shirts.
I think together we can literally be the next great frontier in space and Earth exploration.
Let's go make a story.
I'm really excited for this. I think that this is worth doing. We can make it together.
Thanks for watching our Kickstarter video.
This project is really important to me, and any support is greatly appreciated.
All right, so I hope the biggest takeaway you guys all got from that was a lot of faces, right? And people being maybe slightly awkward, definitely humorous, playful. What we think it's really about is individuals and people, and just about creating an empathetic connection with people watching, looking at your project. And I think everyone in a fundraising perspective is really aware of how important that is. So all the same rules hold true in this case. It's just like any video that you might be thinking about making. It doesn't hurt to be creative in thinking about how you present your idea. But what we do know is that you don't have to make a very fancy video. It doesn't need to be overly produced. That's kind of the magic of this thing, that if you can sort of share a compelling story, share images, you make sure your video is well lit and has good sound, you will be in good shape. So another way you get to tell your story on Kickstarter, and of course invite people into the process, is through rewards. Rewards are a required part of every Kickstarter project. So in exchange for a pledge to your project, someone will get something. Most typically it is a copy of the thing. So if you're proposing, let's say, to put on an exhibition, maybe it is an invitation to come to a special opening that only backers can go to, or maybe it's an original print or some sort of limited edition print or something of that nature. Typically we see a lot of book and film and music projects, or festivals, things like that. So again, it's tickets to the show, it's a copy of the book. It is some way to access the thing that you're proposing to make. Of course, it's also about a creative experience. So you could, again, invite people to the show. You can do something just for the people who are supporting your Kickstarter project. That's always a really good thing to do. You can also offer limited experiences. So at higher pledge levels, you can offer just a few things of something, like maybe it's a studio visit with the artist you're featuring. Maybe it is a hands-on workshop. Maybe it's a tour around a neighborhood. It's something that involves people in your story in a deeper and more creative way. And of course, it's always about the shared story. So from the tiniest pledges, which maybe they'll just get a postcard from the show or from the thing that you're making, it's some sort of token or memento, something that someone can point to and say, I was part of that, I helped make that. So the most common pledge on Kickstarter is $25. The average pledge amount is $71. That most common pledge, that $25 pledge, that is really typical. That is a place where people are consistently willing to part with their hard-earned cash in exchange for something of value. And that's site-wide, and that's time and time again. That average pledge amount, that $71, that varies from category to category, and it also varies from project to project. So if you have a lot of rewards that are skewing higher, that are more appealing, you'll have a higher average pledge. If you have a lot of rewards that are lower, then you'll have a lower average. But it's good to keep that $71 amount in mind, because it has held true over time on Kickstarter. And then we say that the ideal number of reward tiers is between 5 and 7. What we're just trying to say to you there is you want to offer enough breadth for all of your backers and your supporters. So for your $5 and $10 supporters, they have a point of entry. And then, of course, for your $1,000, $5,000, or even $10,000 supporters, they have a point of entry as well. So you want to be thinking about each of these demographic areas as you're setting up your project. That said, you don't want to offer too many. You don't want to overwhelm people with too many choices. It's not necessary, and I think that it makes for not sort of a pleasant experience. So this is really important, guys. Something you do not want to do is offer the $100 tote bag. This is not a pure pledge drive model. This is what we call a mix of patronage and commerce. So it is about patronage in that people are pledging money to you to feel good about themselves and to feel good about supporting a worthwhile project. But it is also about commerce. It's about this exchange of value. You give me $10, I give you $10 of value in return. This sort of fundraising model of offering swag for really high prices is not something that we've seen work really well on the site. In fact, it's those projects that really struggle. So one thing, of course, to keep in mind as you're setting up your reward tiers is show your peers, show your friends, show your colleagues, show people that you trust, and say, this is what I'm thinking about for my Kickstarter. Here's what the rewards will be. What do you guys think? Does this seem like I'm forgetting anything? Does it seem really special? You could even brainstorm with other people. I think it's really fun. If, let's say, you have a membership base or you have a core group of stakeholders that really care about what you're up to, this is a fun project to bring to them, to brainstorm with them. And then also talking about pricing. Am I asking for too much? Am I asking for too little? So really think about this stuff carefully, because this is really the glue that makes it all go. This is, you may have a very compelling project, and then someone will look at your rewards and not really see something that appeals to them. So this is important. So another thing that people really sweat over is the funding goal, right? So how much money should you ask for? A lot of the projects in the news, particularly lately, are the $50,000, the $100,000, the $1 million success stories, and that's really exciting, and we're of course thrilled about that. But when you are creating your own project, it is important for you to keep in mind the scope of your project, how big it is, how much money you need, and then of course how many people you think will pledge to this project, will support this project, and who are those people? Are those $25 people? Because those are, the way this crowdfunding thing works, you're going to get small amounts of money from lots of people rather than big amounts from just a few. So these are all things to keep in mind when you're setting your goal. Of course, because of our all or nothing funding model, you can always raise more than your goal, but never less, right? So if you set a $5,000 goal, you can of course go over it, but you can never, you have to at least hit that goal to get some of the money. So in fact, the average goal of a successful project on Kickstarter is $4,500. This is where people have seen a lot of success, and statistically people do raise between something like 130% of their goal, so it's $6,100. So people are quite often overfunded. Let's see. So this is a chart. That really tall green bar is successful projects in the $1,000 to $5,000 range. So that's nearly half of all projects on the site. This is an old chart. It's from this summer, but the sort of proportions do stay true in that a lot of the energy on the site is happening at this $5,000 level. The shorter green bar, as you can see, is the $5,000 to $10,000 projects. So if you take $10,000 and below, that's 2/3 of all the projects on the site. That's where people are finding a lot of success and a lot of the energy is happening. I could say anecdotally, I don't have statistics on this, but anecdotally, that I've seen organizations raising between $10,000 and $40,000, and sort of kind of most commonly aiming for between $10,000 and $25,000. Depending on your reach and your audience, how active they are online, this is all things for you to keep in mind. So something that we have seen that could be helpful, again, for you setting your goal is the average number of backers on a Kickstarter project is 86. This is a number that has been pretty consistent, so it's a pretty reliable number. And then, of course, we saw that our average pledge amount is $71, and if you multiply those two, you get to $6,100, which, as I said earlier, is the average successful funding amount on Kickstarter. So we're like, well, maybe there's a bit of a formula there. So this is something that people can use when trying to figure out their own goals. So figuring out how many backers you think you can get to support your project, how many people will get excited about this thing, multiply that by that average pledge amount, and get to your total. An important thing about that total, if that total is, let's say, lower than what you think you need for a project, you can do one of two things, or both things. One is that you can, of course, always set a goal that represents just a portion of your project funding. Let's say you want to put on a festival. You can, which is going to cost you a lot of money, or an exhibition. You can raise funds just for the travel cost or for working with a specific artist or maybe some of the production costs to do with a specific piece of the overall exhibition or festival. You can say that in your Kickstarter. You can say this project is going to cost us, I'm just throwing out a number, $1 million, right? You can say we're raising $20,000 here on Kickstarter to do this part of the project. And then all of your rewards have to do with that piece that you're raising money for. Of course, the other thing you can do is think about how you can increase the number of backers who are going to support your project. So while your project is running and you're trying to raise awareness for it, you're going to think about how do I get press to cover this story. Maybe you throw an event, have a party, all the typical cultivation and awareness raising stuff you would do for a regular fundraiser. So backers, these are people I keep talking about and I'm sure you guys are curious about. Who are they? These people are, most of them, the majority of them, 75%, even 85% are people already in your network. These are people who are your Facebook fans. These are your friends. These are your Twitter followers. Of course, family, anyone sort of close to you, any press that you do, sort of your usual reach. So you're not, for the most part, this is about speaking to people you're already speaking about, but maybe engaging people you don't usually get to engage. That's one advantage of this, I think, for organizations, because you're giving them a small, concrete way to have a really deep experience with your organization. It's not until a project is going to succeed, it really has a lot of momentum, it looks like it's going to happen, that the other people come into it. So that other 15 to 25%, that might be because of some extra press that you get. Maybe people who pledge money to your project, they tell other people about it. Maybe it's those repeat backers, the people who kind of hang out on Kickstarter and look at nice projects. Maybe they're jumping in. I do that quite a lot. I back a lot of projects that I don't know the people. So now that you have these people engaged in your project, they're really excited about it. Trust me, they are now following along rapidly. They really want to know what's going on, which is cool. And it's maybe an opportunity that you haven't had with this particular audience. So you have a couple ways to engage with them directly through the Kickstarter platform. We have something called Project Updates that's built right into your project page on Kickstarter. It functions like a blog. You can write text, you can include video, you can include sound or images. And whenever you write a new post, it appears on your page, but also anyone who has backed your project, it also gets delivered directly to their mailbox. So it acts like a little a newsletter just for that project, which is really cool. It's shareable. You can Facebook like those posts, so it's also social. It's a way to tell people about your project who are already supporting you, who can then tell their friends. So of course you want to talk about the process, and then you also want to talk about people's rewards. People, of course, want to know where their stuff is. So this is an example that was for a book project. It's a whole bunch of books ready to go out. The two women behind the project snapped a picture of it and sent it as a project update saying your books are on the way. Of course, people got really excited about this and posted it all over the internet. They were like, wow, they were exciting. It's exciting to see this. This is where people really get to feel like we help make this happen. So these are moments that are really personable and really, really about that storytelling element I talked about earlier. So again, reemphasizing this idea that every Kickstarter is a story. So I want to quickly dive into a case study to take some of these bigger ideas into a sort of specific project. This is a case study I've never shared. Usually I have like a more idiosyncratic kind of art project, but knowing who this audience would be, I tried to pick something that would speak to many of your needs. It's a very creative project. It is a kit. It could be for an environmental cause or for an activist cause. It's very community-oriented, very civic-minded. It took place in Portland, Oregon. It was organized by a group of people, but you can see one person sort of spearheaded, a guy named Matthew, spearheaded it and created the project, but then the whole organization sort of got behind it. So they had a lot of success. They had set a $6,000 goal. They obviously were well overfunded, and we'll take a look at that with almost a $35,000 goal. And I think more excitingly, 463 backers, which they talk about later in their project. So I think that the best way to get to know a project is, of course, to look at their project video. So their video is a little longer. It's like nearly 5 minutes long. So again, cozy up to your computer. It's actually 4 minutes long. Make sure your speakers are on or your headphones are plugged
We're the public laboratory for open technology and science, and we want to sell you a really big balloon. We got our start from the simple idea that we could quickly map the Deepwater Horizon oil spill with inexpensive digital cameras attached to kites and balloons. And it worked. Collaborating with the Louisiana Bucket Brigade and dozens of volunteers, we got great high-resolution imagery while the no-fly zone was still in place for airplanes. Many of us became volunteers because Jeff Warren launched a grassroots mapping Kickstarter. That's how me and dozens of other online and Gulf Coast volunteers found grassroots mapping. Now, a core group of us have formed a nonprofit, the Public Laboratory, to continue to support our community with a complete civic science workflow from software to DIY toolkits and real-world outcomes. That's why I'm trying to sell you balloons. Grassroots mapping is easy. The camera goes up, snaps hundreds of photos, and then you just pick out a few good ones and make a map. We've developed our own browser-based MapKnitter tool in which anyone can upload photos to start a map. In MapKnitter, you can intuitively stretch photos over lower resolution satellite imagery and then export into web standard and professional formats. The result is an island of high resolution in a sea of low resolution satellite data. Our collaborative development process has now spread around the world, and through more than 18 months of development, we've made a simple technique even simpler, and a lot cheaper. It's the little things, like the right string winder, strong rubber bands, and a good, affordable, and reusable balloon. We've found all these things, and we're ready to throw it in a box and ship it to you. We're especially fond of these big neoprene rubber balloons. They're durable and only lose about 5% of their helium a day, so you can take them around to a few different spots. The more people, the better the ballooning, so make a weekend of it. Here's what you need to do. Find a camera with continuous shot mode. If you have an Android phone or an iPhone, easy. 2. Buy our balloon kit. 3. Get a plastic bottle to protect your camera. Our community has perfected our camera protector over dozens of little changes, and we trust these bottles. Really. 2-liter bottles for small cameras, 3 liters in juice bottles for big cameras and phones. But if sticking your camera in a soda bottle and sending it to 1,000 feet isn't really your thing, you can live vicariously through others with our Grassroots Mapping Forum, a 23 by 35-inch map printed quarterly on acid-free paper with interviews and how-tos in the back. Anybody giving $10 and up gets one. For $20, we'll also throw in a wall print. You can choose from 4 of our favorite maps. For $30, you will receive Grassroots Mapping Forum quarterly through 2012. That's 5 issues in total. For $40, you receive this t-shirt as well. For $45, you get a balloon, no kit. But for $85, we give you a full balloon kit with a balloon, pre-wound line, instructions, rubberized gloves, and all the little stuff you need to get going. For $95, you get the full balloon kit and a subscription to GM Forum. Your backing won't just help us start a store for kits. It will also help us set up the infrastructure to create small runs of prototypes, like this kite I've been collaborating on. We can store bulk materials such as Tyvek and cloth in a centralized location and have them sent piecemeal to developers and collaborators. The same applies to our other tools in development, like hydrogen sulfide testing with photo paper or our thermal painting system. You see, we've hit on a simple formula. Take a piece of everyday high-tech like a camera, combine it with something simple like a balloon, get cool images. Now this had been done before. Here's Boston from a balloon in 1860. But we also add software and information databases to create quantifiable data that can be easily shared. This formula keeps working. Developed film can form an infrared filter for a camera, and it's not too hard to stick inside. Combine that with visible light imagery, and we can do vegetation analysis, watching the chlorophyll in plants. Or use the refraction of a CD to produce spectrographic data, and use our online software to analyze it for the constituent elements in a sample. But I'm off track. This is really a Kickstarter about balloons. So get a kit and go out there and make a map. Help lay out your urban farm plot, or document the seasonal changes at your local Superfund waterway, or go look at how selective the selective logging has been in your area. This is all grassroots mapping, and we hope you'll join us.
All right. So point out a few things about that video before we move on. Something they did really well at the outset was show some context. This is who we are. This is where we came from. In fact, we did another project around this really specific moment in time, this really specific issue. We had a lot of success. And then they told you, through that we built this incredible team, and you saw, again, that's where the faces come in. So there's the guys speaking, but then you see the whole team, which is really nice, and you see that they're from all over. They also share with you that from that first project, from that first team, there's now been this sort of demand or this desire for a kit, and then hence this project emerging. So they kind of set it up really well. Of course, then they go through and share their bigger vision with you. Something that I noticed, I've watched this video a few times, is that last minute, it almost doesn't need to be there, but I think they knew that, and so they appended it at the very end. They sort of are aware that people might click away after 3 minutes. They may be done, but just in case there are people who are very kind of a little nerdier, maybe deeply interested in this issue, wanted some more information, they did give them that extra minute of some of the bigger picture questions, maybe some of the more technical information that only a few people would care about. They didn't put that in the middle. They didn't distract from their sort of core message from it. They put it at the end, and they did put it there. They could have instead just embedded it into their project description if they wanted, but they made that choice. That was a good one. Another point about that video, it was very creatively done. It was quite nice, I thought. But as someone who's made a few videos and taught a bunch of kids how to make videos, it's something that was made using a bunch of simple tricks and iMovie for sure. So this is not something that you need a very fancy video maker. It's someone who just needs someone who has good creativity. You could show someone like me, for instance, who has very limited video production skills. I could look at that and, oh, I could make something like that. So that's good news, and that's a skill that I've had since forever, so I can tell you that a teenager could probably at least have the technical skills to do that. All right, so let's look at their rewards, because as I said, this is really key. We've now seen their video. We're excited. We're inspired by their story. We want to know how we can get involved. So at $8 and $10, they offered you a copy of this poster that they make, which is what they call their Grassroots Mapping Forum. On one side is an image of a map that they made with the balloons, and on the other, it features interviews and how-tos, some other detailed information about that specific project. This is really nice. I actually did back this project. I backed it at the $8 level, which was for forum number 1. This image came from their project description. So this is really key. When you're describing something in a reward, you want to also show people what it is that they're getting. So I actually was looking at it, and I'm like, what do they mean, Grassroots Mapping Forum? What is that? And then I saw the picture of it, and I was like, wow, that's actually quite beautiful. And for $8, I would love to learn about this thing. So this is really key. And you can also see this is a limited reward. This is something you can do, as I mentioned earlier. So they had 300 copies of this they were willing to sort of send out, which obviously was plenty. Now getting a little higher up, they had for $20, they had 34 people back this, and they offered you a print of one of their favorite maps they had made through Grassroots Mapping. And there was a few different things. There was environmental pictures. There were things related to activism. They mentioned somewhere that activist groups have lately been using it. So this image, again, taken from their project description, and all the images are in the project description, is of Occupy Oakland. So it's colorful, it's nice. If you've been part of the Occupy movement, I'm sure this is something that you would want to have. And likewise, any of the other environmental things, or maybe if you live in New York, the Washington Square Park one would be appealing, and so on and so forth. So then, finally, at $45, we're starting to get into the kits themselves. So this is a really important thing. This is a group of people, a nonprofit organization that has a cause. It has a mission. It's trying to get more people involved in this particular kind of activity, and they want to have this online community that's really supporting this kind of thing. They recognize that not everyone maybe wants the kit. I'm one of those people. I don't want to be a balloon mapper, but I do support their cause. So I can get an image, or I can get the forum, the issue of the forum. But then they really made this project for the kit. So the key here is the reward should really reflect the core of the project, and they've done a great job of that here. So now at the $45 to $85, starting at $45 and up, you're getting the kit. At the $85 level, you're getting the actual kit. $45, you're just getting this balloon that they describe in their video. It's the one that they've said they've tested a lot, and this is the one that works really well. And then you can go out and buy all the other stuff you need. It's a DIY sort of basic. $85, you get all the stuff, plus an issue of the Grassroots Mapping Forum and an instructional kit. 262 people, and I'll show you a chart of this later, backed for this level. Out of over 400 people, you can see this is well on the majority of people. People really wanted this kit. This is really about getting grassroots mappers into the world. At 325 and 425, they had some special kits that use this infrared and visible light camera that they talk about in their video. This is a really popular reward, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So let me advance. Okay, so here's this is a graph of their reward by popularity. So you can see that really tall bar, that's the $85. So as I said, the majority of people pledged for that. If you take the 45 and above, that's 64% of people pledged for that kit. Because they had so many people pledging at $85, their average pledge did work out to $75. They had 12 reward tiers, which is a little more than, quote unquote, we say is ideal, but as it is always up to you. They did add a couple in also as they went. So you can see how that played out. Okay, let's look at their duration. So they ran this project for 22 days. As I said earlier, we recommend about 30 days to run a project. 20 days is fine. I do have to say this is not a typical funding graph, and there's annotations at the top. It says launch, trough, and finale. That is actually describing a typical graph. I did leave it in because I did want to bring this up. Typically when a project launches, there's a big uptick, and they did have that. They had 34% of their backers, 161 people, pledged money to their project in the first 4 days of their project. They crossed their goal and saw a lot of success right at the beginning. Then typically you'll see what we call the trough, and that's a quiet period. That's where not a lot of pledging has happened. It did slow down for them, where they had an average of like 30 backers a day in the beginning, and they only had maybe between 12 and 15 on average from the middle period and even through the end. But it was a steady increase for them. I put a little red dot over there's quite a severe uptick, and that was after they sent out one of those project updates I mentioned earlier, and we'll take a look at that in a moment. And then the finale. Typically, as a project is closing and you're reaching sort of the end, the time is running out, this is a big psychological motivator for people. And this is something a project creator can use to their advantage. The project's about to end, let's hit 600% funded. You're giving people sort of an emotional goal, let's do this together. They, as I said earlier, they have this sort of just general upward slope in their projects. So not typical, but nice to see anyway. So let's look at those updates. So they sent 5 updates over the course of their 22 days. They stopped sending updates once their project had concluded. Something important to say is you can continue sending updates all the way through whatever it is you're doing. So if you're trying to do an exhibition or a festival or make a publication, you would send updates, or you could, it's up to you, it's optional, all the way through the sending out of those books, or the day of the festival, or the opening of the exhibition, or the closing of the exhibition. So you can really use this as a private newsletter, a way to speak directly with these people who've invested in your project. I think that's really incredible and really special. So the first update they sent was 5 days in. As I said, they had that amazing first 4 or 5 days. They were so stunned, they were blown away, they sent a thank you, and then also letting people know that keep getting the word out and stay tuned in the next few weeks as we sort of keep you in the loop for where we're headed with this. I included these comments. People can comment on project updates. Someone asked some technical questions, and Matthew wrote back and answered them in the comments forum. People can also contact you privately through an email message, and you can write back privately to them too. So let me advance. So then their next update they sent 1 week later, announcing this workshop series. So the week before they said, stay tuned, we're going to be talking about some more things. So 1 week later they said, holy cow, we're 299% funded, we have $18,000. We're really excited, and now we think we can reach $25,000. So here's them setting this soft goal. This is something we see whenever a project is overfunded on Kickstarter. This is something we see happen. This is not, as a case study, I don't want to say this is a normal thing. While of course projects do get overfunded on Kickstarter, it's really about just motivating people to get to your funding goal most of the time for most of the people. But if for some reason you do pass your goal, this is a great example of how to motivate people to keep going. And I think they do it really well. They talk about, in really positive terms, sort of what's going on, what the implications of all this success are. So it's making all these people who are participating feel really good about it. And then they announced that they're planning March Mapping Madness, which just happened, and it was really great. I was part of that list. It was really fun. And they're inviting people to post to this mapping list. So they're saying, now you're part of our community, help us figure out where to do these workshops. This is really great. Okay, so of course then they drop in a little note about those rewards, because people are always like, okay, when am I going to get the kit? When am I going to get the kit? So they're really excited, and they're saying, okay, as a special, special gift, because we've done so well, everyone is now going to get the forum. So this is something that people will do. This is the exchange of value. This is where everyone is taking care of each other. You as the project creators are saying, thanks to all of you, we've hit this enormous mark, and so everyone who pledged $85 and above is going to get that mapping forum that we talked about. Then, remember that little red dot I drew on the timeline? They also said limited special offer, matched infrared and visible light camera set and balloon kit. So those two top level rewards, the $325 and $425, they added those on this day. So that huge uptick that we saw, that happened here, which led to 10 people adjusting their initial pledge from $85 to $300 or $400. So typically where they were seeing maybe $1,000 a day come in, which is incredible, guys, not typical, incredible, they're now seeing a $4,000 increase in one day, which is incredible. So in addition to their usual new backers, they also had 10 people. Who are increasing their pledges. So finally, number 4, which was 2 days later, the original kits they included, they sold out. So they said, guys, this is great. You guys obviously want this. We're going to increase the number that we offered on for the 325 level. And then they do a little bit of education here, right? So how do we take infrared photographs with a digital camera? They explain how it works, probably because people were asking about it. What is this thing? You can see 2 people Facebook like this. So this is one way that these updates become social and help people get the word out about your project. Okay, and then their final update, this is success, 544% funded, 300 new grassroots mappers. And they say that is to us the biggest success of all, that we have more people involved in our cause and our mission, which is great. And then, of course, an update about their rewards. Okay, so again, this is all about getting a whole bunch of people involved in your story and your mission and your passion, inviting them into your story and inviting them to come along and join you, not to just donate money to you. I think that's sort of the biggest distinction, and that's the thing that's made this all work so well. And again, emphasizing this idea that this is an incredible storytelling platform. So final thoughts for you guys. I sent to Wendy ahead of time a one sheet about Kickstarter, as well as a document with some links to our guidelines, what kind of projects can work on Kickstarter and don't work on Kickstarter, as well as our school, which goes over a lot of the points I just covered, and also our FAQ. So whenever someone's starting a project, you always have lots of questions. We'll hopefully answer a bunch today, but there's a great, great FAQ section on our website. So there's that as well. And that's it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. That was a terrific overview and an interesting project of a very robust fundraising opportunity. And I have to say we did get a lot of questions. I think I can try to break them down into some categories. I think we should maybe start with sort of the idea about what kinds of projects can get funded. You started with that and sort of gave us an overview. But maybe through a few of these questions we can fine-tune that. And because it does seem like there is a big investment at the beginning of this project in terms of creating the film. You want to make sure that you're in proper alignment with the guidelines.
Sure, yeah. So I think the guidelines are it needs to be creative, one. So we have 13 categories on Kickstarter, going from film to music to art to design, food, technology, fashion, games, and it goes on. It's a list you can see if you click on Discover along the right side. So it has to fit into one of those categories. That's how we define creative. 2, projects. It needs to have a beginning and an end, something that's finite, something that's specific. So again, you might, as an organization, you may have a bigger goal, but you really want to frame your Kickstarter on a specific thing. That said, I've seen organizations be really creative about how they are able to bring sort of broader needs to the Kickstarter platform. A great example, and you guys could write this down, is a project in St. Louis by a group called The Luminary, And they actually have $1 million capital campaign going on right now. And they did do a project that's part of that capital campaign, but they really framed it as a specific project for the community in this moment. So I would highly recommend looking at how they did that. Take a look at their video too. The video that they made is actually the video they're using for their capital campaign in general. So all the investment they put into it, it's a very nice video, is something that they're not just using on their Kickstarter, but they're using again and again.
So just a few little questions that might illuminate that for someone. So if you have an oriented project, an environmental-oriented projects, we've heard that some of those have been rejected along the way. And you demonstrated one that was an environmentally oriented. What makes them acceptable?
Yeah, I think that it's really framing the creative side of it. So in this case, it's this idea of inviting people in to become grassroots mappers alongside of these other grassroots mappers, that there's a kit and that people are making things together. I think this felt really in the spirit of creativity to us, and also felt very clearly like a project. So even though they're trying to launch a whole grassroots mapping community, that's their big goal, they really made it finite. They're like, we're trying to get these kits out into the world. So they were able to put parentheses on either side of their overall goal. I would say that whenever an environmental project approaches Kickstarter, they should really think carefully about how to do that, how to put brackets, how to scope it. So we've seen a lot of community garden projects. We've seen, I'm trying to think of we've seen something called the Global Village Construction Kit, which is quite an incredible project, which really they were like, we're trying to get started with this, but we're new and we're just at the beginning. So they really focused on sort of the spirit and wonder of becoming part of this community. I think it's a fine line, but really thinking about creative projects and keeping your head firmly in that space, you'll find success.
And if you are thinking about several of our grantees, for example, are from education organizations, and they look for funding to support an individual kid for a program.
Right.
Is that a good approach, or is it better to approach it from the project or a group of youth? Do you have any input on that?
You definitely want to talk about the project. And let me see, there's a project that just launched. It's for doing animation. Let's see. I think I just found it. It's for teaching mnemonic devices, teaching animation as a trick to teach mnemonic devices to young kids. And I think that they are working, not totally sure, but with a special needs population. But basically they wanted to raise a few $1,000s to be able to continue to run this class because they found a lot of success with it. The name of it is Memory Tricks! And so if you search for that in the search bar, you'll see they did a really, really great job at really framing the art part of it and the sort of what they're bringing to it, and not really talking about the needs of the children. I think this is something where education often goes wrong. It's sort of downplaying the assets of the educators. So this is a project that I actually helped advise on, and they really sort of were like, this is the thing we're doing, it's really magical, it's wonderful, and if you look at the rewards, they're really thinking about the outcomes and the really positive experiences that are coming out of this. So I think it's a good project to look at. Again, Memory Tricks. If you search for it, it's running right now.
So is there a way, I'm getting a whole bunch of people with a lot of ideas. Is there a way to test an idea before you go and make a whole video on it to see if it's a good idea for Kickstarter?
You can certainly write into our customer support team if you think that you have an idea that's sort of on the edge.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. So let's move a little bit onto the process. There were a lot of process questions. One was around just even the budgeting, and this concept that if specifically, you get lucky enough and you overachieve on your fundraising goal, how do you budget and deal with the challenges of actually even being overwhelmed with having to deal with more rewards than you planned on, et cetera? What have people done in those cases?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of you outlined it right there. I think it's being just like strategic, as strategic as you would be with any other program that you're running. That's something that I when I'm working with organizations that I like to emphasize is that really I wouldn't think of doing a Kickstarter as different from or separate from any other thing that you do. I would think incorporating it as much as you can into your body of work. So, just being just as strategic, thinking just as carefully about your budget and your expenses and your outlay and what you can do, what would be fun to do or useful to do, what people really want to see. Because this is a direct engagement project, you're really thinking as much about the creative programming and the audience engagement side of it as you are, of course, about the fundraising side of it. So when you're planning out that budget, you, of course, want to make sure that you do, collect an overhead that will support the project, but you also want to make sure that your rewards are also supporting that project. They're fulfilling the aims of the project. So this is where I really advise people away from offering things like swag, so like T-shirts or magnets or buttons or stickers. Those are things that cost money but really don't really help your project in the end. One reason I really like that Grassroots Mapping Forum project is because at those lower levels, those $8 levels, that's typically where you're going to see the swag. They were like, well, actually we make this publication and we'll send you a copy. It's something they're already printing, they're already distributing. It's part of their mission to get those out into the world. It's part of their programming goals. So for them, that was a cost that was worth it. So that when looking at their overall budget, that was something that was okay. And you saw at the $10 level, they did limit it to 300 because that was probably the run they could afford to do or were willing to do. So it's, thinking just like we always do when we're planning projects.
And in terms of the demographic of people who do participate as donors, do you find that they are from a younger generation or across the board?
Again, I would emphasize that since 75% to even 85% of the people who back your project do come from your own network, if your network does span from younger to older, then probably, the younger subset is going to be more engaged here. So you would probably want to develop a project more targeted at them. That said, if you do just have an older demographic, you don't want to be targeting younger people because they likely won't hear about it. So unless you have a reason to suddenly be engaging all these younger people you've never engaged before, which could be fun and could be worth it if you're up for that challenge, I wouldn't build a whole project around an imaginary audience. You really want to think about who is my existing audience, what are their needs, what are their interests. So far it has been younger people pledging to Kickstarter, but that's because it's been younger people making projects because it's really, again, it's a match. Whoever your audience is are the people that mostly are the people who are pledging money to projects.
So just want to make sure that I'm clear on this, though. Then, if you send it out to 100 people, you might hope, though, that they share it with 100 of their friends.
Right.
Is there a way then to collect the data on those new pledgers?
Yeah. So everyone who pledges money to your project becomes part of a list. You have access to that list, and then when your project ends, you can send a survey to all those people. And of course, you're mostly asking them how to get them their rewards, but you're also asking for an email just so you can stay in touch. You can ask them for a mailing address if there's a reason for that or other sorts of information. So those people you can capture that information.
And so, can you give us sort of just a sense of the percentage of projects that get submitted and how many get accepted?
We recently did away with our proposals process, and we're in a transition sort of period. But it looks like our acceptance rate has gone up, which was the purpose of doing away with that. So now someone has to come in, make a project, and then submit it for approval. The idea being that we can review the actual project, not the sort of description of the project, which, as we hoped, means that we've been accepting more. So lately, the acceptance rate has been in the mid-80s. And we hope to see that go up more and more.
Terrific. Thank you. Well, we have somebody on the line. We have a few minutes left. And David Keefe has been the project director for a program called Combat Paper that was run from the paper I'm going to let him speak to it because I thought that it would be very interesting to just have somebody talk about what it felt like to go through this process, the amount of work, the rewards, and the elation actually of meeting and overreaching on their goals. David, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. And David is from the Printmaking Council of New Jersey, and he was the project director for Combat Paper.
Yes. There was a great presentation. It had a lot of the points that we believed that when we set up our project. I think the biggest and most important element to the whole process is the video. It really provides a visual. It provides the exact story that you want to tell. And we spent a lot of time on our video to make sure that it was not only just stating the facts, but it was actually part of what we do. And Combat Paper is a program where we tell veteran stories. We cut up military uniforms, make paper out of them, and in the process tell stories. And the end product is to make art out of the paper from the military uniforms. And so our video was a part of that process. It was a story in itself. So I think that the video was really what, aside from our project being a powerful project, I do think the video really spoke to a lot of our backers. A couple other points that I do want to add was the updates I thought were very important. It felt kind of like a game to us. We would check we launched on February 20th of this year, and it was every day we were checking, seeing how the funding was going up, and it was going up quickly. So it was just exciting. I had it on my iPhone. I was checking around every 10 minutes. But in the process, we updated as we went. So we would, again, as the presentation illustrated, thanking our backers as we went. Every time we sent an update out, our number rose dramatically for backers. The other thing that is utilizing social media, we use Facebook a lot in providing updates and posting the site and posting the link to Kickstarter. And that was another jump in our fundraising in the whole campaign, was every time we put a Facebook post on, we saw the number rise. So that was something that we used. Other than that, it was an exciting time. Our project ended on March 20th, and we were successful. We put a number of $15,000 out. That was our goal, and we raised $19,000. Most of our funding came very early on, and then at the very end, just how that graph showed, and it was exciting. And now that we have the funding, we have the rewards to make and send out. That's where we are now in our project.
And so, how much? Say, if you raised 19, how much did it cost you to participate in this Kickstarter event?
Zero. We have the only budget that we have we did have T-shirts as one of our rewards tiers. And I think only 100 T-shirts, something like that we have to make. I don't have the number in front of me. So that would be the only budget cost that we have. Whether it was the video or setting up the site, all the information that goes in with launching the project was $0. We wanted it to be our own. We wanted it to be a story made from within, so it was myself and a coordinator that made the video, took all the footage, went through and edited it down, added the music, played the music ourselves so we didn't have to go through rights and all that kind of stuff. So we wanted it to be a very, very low budget. We wanted it to be right from the heart, and that's, I think, was in our benefit.
Well, thank you so much. As we have one more minute, and I wanted to introduce you all to Molly Diaguiar. She is our communications director here at the Dodge Foundation, and she will tell you about Dodge's curated Kickstarter page. Molly?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So there were a couple of really great examples in this presentation because, Stephanie, we actually curated the balloon mapping kit on our page because we were pretty amazed by that project. And we also tried to help out the Printmaking Center by curating their project as well on our page. So you can see on your screens the website address for us, so for our curated page. So it's Kickstarter/GR-Dodge. And what we do is we periodically go through Kickstarter and we pick projects that are related to our areas of funding, so arts, education, environment, media, and poetry. And we pick projects that reflect the kinds of things that we do here in New Jersey, but I want to clarify that Dodge doesn't actually fund any of the Kickstarter projects. We're here to help you promote your Kickstarter project. So right now, a lot of the projects on our page aren't actually our grantees, but as soon as our grantees begin to launch their own Kickstarter campaigns, we will absolutely put them on our curated page. You just have to let us know, let me know, send me an email, and I will put it up on our curated page. And then my job is to help you promote it as much as possible. So with the Combat Paper project, we put it on the Dodge Foundation's Facebook page, and we sent it out on Twitter. And we did that a few times actually during the course of the project to try to help them out, and we'd be happy to do that for any of our grantees. You just have to let us know that you have launched a campaign. So that we see that as our job. So just let us know.
Thank you, Molly. And thank you all. I know there are probably some other burning questions out there, and I wish we had more time. But I will ask Stephanie to take a quick look at some of the questions that you've chatted and see if there that we can email to you later or that aren't answered in the documents that we'll be sending to you afterwards. We thank you all for your time, and good luck out there with your Kickstarter campaigns. Bye-bye.